It only shows up when it notices the other person is okay, when it sees that the fall didn't destroy anything, when it realizes that what was left behind hasn't stopped just because of the absence. Now, it appears saying it needs to talk. But why? Because there's laughter where it expected pain, because even after so much there was no pleading or return? It's not a conversation it seeks. It's confirmation that there is still space, but there isn't anymore. The pain that surfaces now is just the reflection of the damage left behind. False urgency, disguised as nostalgia. A desire to return, just to check if there's still control. If it were love, it would have stayed. If it were sincere regret, it would have come before the silence flourished. There's no anger, there's peace, and that peace is what bothers it the most. It only appears when it sees that there's no longer a fall, when it realizes that the silence no longer bleeds, when it understands that the absence didn't hurt enough to prevent a new beginning. The presence that emerges now isn't sincere, it's strategic. It appears as if to say, I need to talk, but carries the look of someone who can't stand to see what they've lost, blooming without their permission. It's not about nostalgia, it's about control, because what hurts isn't the distance, it's the fact that even from afar they weren't necessary, because the other person moved on, because the other person didn't turn back, because the image constructed of being indispensable was broken in silence, and nothing hurts more than realizing they left, and no one fell apart because of it. It messages privately as if pretending to be in a hurry, urgent, in crisis, but the only crisis there is the ego, the need to feel irreplaceable, to ensure that there's still space even after everything. There isn't. And that's not hurt. It's clarity. It's realization. Because when there was real love, there was no care. When there was giving, there was no presence. When there was waiting, there was no return. And now it comes with shallow phrases, with fractured words. With that, needs to talk that no longer deceives. But it's always like this. Who has never known how to feel, shows up to test if they can leave again one more time. Time has passed. What once hurt now weighs differently. Nostalgia has stopped being waiting. It has become memory. Memory has turned into distance, and distance has become protection. Today there are no answers for why it's still felt. Today it's ignored because it was learned, because not all returns are reconciliations. Sometimes it's just a wounded ego asking for attention, and listening at this point is not empathy, it's self-sabotage. Saying you want to talk now is easy. Wanting to understand after everything has collapsed is convenient. Asking for another chance after the other's silence has screamed for months is convenient. But what about before? Where were you when presence was a silent plea? Where were you when the other cried alone and wondered if it was worth continuing? You weren't there, you disappeared, you ignored, you underestimated, you devalued, and now you show up. But life doesn't pause waiting for belated understanding. Those who left when it was love don't return when it's moved on. There comes a moment when you get tired. It's not hurt. It's not hate. It's the exhaustion of fighting alone for something that was supposed to be shared. There comes a time when absence becomes a habit, and the heart, which once cried for attention, learns to be enough on its own, and when that happens, there's no more space for promises. There's no more energy for unresolved conversations. There's no more thirst for justifications, because what was wanted wasn't an explanation. It was presence, it was care, it was respect, and what came was distance, it was disregard, it was silence. The most painful part isn't the departure, it's the way it ends, it's the indifference with which one leaves, it's the coldness of someone who doesn't look back. And then, when everything is rebuilt, you show up. Not out of true regret, but because you can't stand seeing what you left evolving without your shadow. This isn't about revenge. It's not about showing that you've moved on. It's deeper than that. It's understanding that those who really mattered wouldn't have waited so long to care. It's realizing that oftentimes a return is not an apology. It's just wounded pride trying to feed off someone else's stability. Those who hurt and come back rarely come to heal. They come to test if they still have power. They come to see if the heart they left in pieces still beats for the same name. But this time, no. This time the answer is silence. The answer is indifference. The answer is life moving on, despite everything that was left behind. Not every "I need to talk to you" deserves a response. Not every attempt at reconnection has to do with love. Sometimes it's just the desperation of someone who realized too late that they lost something they never knew how to care for. And caring isn't saying, "I was wrong." Caring is not having chosen wrong. It's not having ignored the signs. It's not having used someone else's love as a comfort zone for your own emptiness. When the other person didn't need another chance, when the other person needed presence, needed respect, needed truth, needed someone who wouldn't run away when things got tough. But what was received was indifference. It was silence where affection should have been. It was pride where humility should have been, and now it's too late. There comes a time when the heart changes direction, not out of vengeance, but out of self-respect, because giving yourself again to someone who has already shown they can't stay is to repeat a pain already lived. And no soul can endure the same pain twice, hoping for a different outcome. It's easy to want to go back when you see the other person smile. It's simple to knock on the door when you realize you haven't been completely forgotten. But just because there's a memory doesn't mean there's still room. There's affection that turns into distance out of necessity. There's a memory that turns into protection. And there's a longing that should no longer be nurtured, because that which couldn't stay doesn't have the right to return. If you want to talk, go ahead. But don't expect warmth, don't expect a gentle, sweet, understanding response. Not after what was done, not after everything that was ignored. Who disappears when it was love cannot return when it has become freedom. Sometimes the best way to respond is to not open the message, to not feed the cycle, to close a story that has already had too many chapters, because there is no happy ending when only one side fought. If it's going to be a conversation, let it be with maturity. If it's going to be a return, let it come back changed. If it's going to be an insistence, let it be with truth. But if all of that is missing, let it stay in the past, there where it got lost. Because no new beginning should be built with the same hands that tore everything down before. Let it stay in the past, there where you chose to be absent, there where you preferred to be silent when you needed to speak, there where the other cried and you chose silence. Because someone who opts to leave in the midst of chaos cannot come back when everything is in order. Who abandons in winter has no place in spring. And this is not coldness, it's consequence. It's the price of not having been, of not having done, of not having stayed. While one side tried, the other tested. While one side insisted, the other pulled away. And when there was finally surrender, absence became relief. The pain became clarity. The longing became a period. And now you show up with fragile words as if they could fix everything that was broken with such disregard. But it doesn't work that way. Not after so much. Not after what was endured in silence. Who gets tired doesn't announce it. Who gives up has already tried too much. And who learns to live without doesn't come back for little because there were long nights. Contained tears. Messages written and deleted, plans dismantled, dreams thrown to the ground, and no one saw. And no one returned. So let it be understood once and for all. When the other chose to move on without, it wasn't strength, it was necessity. It wasn't coldness, it was protection. It wasn't pride, it was survival. And that changes everything. Because who learns to survive without doesn't let themselves die with. Now there is silence. Not for lack of feeling, but for excess of reality. Because words no longer touch, promises no longer entice, and the presence that returns too late doesn't move one. It annoys. Life has changed. The perspective has changed. The affection is no longer naive. The commitment is no longer immediate. Now we observe. We evaluate. We measure not what is said, but what is done. And those who return only with words return empty. If you're going to be here, be all in. If you're going to ask for space, bring actions. If you're going to invade the peace that has been earned, think twice. Because what is silence today was once a scream. What is absence today was once full presence. And what is indifference today was once raw love. But love runs out. Affection closes off. The soul shields itself. And when this happens, there's no turning back. There are memories, but there is no desire. There are recollections, but there is no will, and that is frightening. Because what was once guaranteed is now uncertain. And what was once available is now a wall. And let's not kid ourselves. There was no victory. There was no game. There was pain. There was renunciation. There was reconstruction. And to reconstruct is not to forget. It's to look back without wanting to return. Let's talk. No, we don't talk anymore. Now we observe from afar. Now everything that took too long to rebuild is protected. If you want to be in another time, at another pace, with another attitude, but not now, not like this. Because now there's no hole to fill, there's no emptiness left, there's no gap. And perhaps the hardest lesson is this: those who waited too long grew tired. Those who loved too much dried up. Those who believed too much woke up. And waking up hurts, but it sets you free. Freedom has a price, and the price, sometimes, is closing the door on those who only learned the way when it was already locked. Those who don't know the value of presence don't deserve a second chance with absence, and yes, perhaps there is still feeling. But it's no longer an invitation. It's just a memory, cold, hard, intact, that no longer stirs anything. The cycle has closed, not by chance, but because insisting would be dishonest to oneself. And that is enough, not because it was sufficient, but insisting has no point anymore. It no longer holds up. It can no longer be accepted. The mistake was thinking the other would wait forever, that the heart wouldn't tire, that affection would survive neglect. But nothing withstands prolonged absence. Nothing survives where only one side breathes. And now it is this: a return that comes too late, a gesture that cannot mend, a speech that doesn't satisfy, a presence that no longer makes a difference. Because those who needed it shouted and were not heard, and those who remain silent after so much shouting stay silent forever. It's not about pride, it's exhaustion, from waiting, from expectation, from the constant attempt to understand what never made sense, exhaustion from pleading with gestures, from justifying the unjustifiable, from accepting the little as though it were enough. And the cruelest part of this all is that inside, there is still something that feels, but not enough to start over, just enough to not forget. And remembering is not the same as wanting back. It's just the mark of what once was, and will be no more, because every time the door was left open, only what hurt came in. And now it is closed, not in anger, but with firmness, not out of revenge, but out of respect, and that confuses, because those who always had access are bothered by limits. But now there are limits, there are boundaries, there are silent rules that don't need to be said. The main one is, those who don't know how to care don't come back. And if they do come back, they don't enter. Insisting on this return is a mistake. It's a disrespect to a story that has already ended. It's an attempt to occupy a space that no longer exists. Time doesn't stop. Wounds don't wait for permission to heal. And what has healed no longer bleeds. Therefore, I need to talk to you doesn't evoke emotion. It's just noise. It's just an echo from someone who only screams when they realize they've lost. It's not nostalgia. It's desperation, knowing they are no longer remembered fondly. It's ego throbbing in the face of its own insignificance. And if there are still doubts, look at what remains. What remains is peace. And peace is not negotiable. It cannot be borrowed. Do not expose yourself to old risks. Peace, once achieved, becomes a principle, and giving it up is a betrayal to oneself. Those who have left do not return to the same place, because the place has changed, because time has passed, because those who stayed have also departed, inward beyond the pain, and from that point you cannot return the same, nor can you accept the same. The love that once waited now protects itself, and the heart that once accepted any scraps now demands everything or nothing, and nothing, in this case, feels safer, lighter, fairer. So yes, there may still be memories, but they don't move, they don't reignite, they merely exist, and like a book that has already been read, underlined, and closed. And it will not be reopened. There are stories that end even when someone insists on rewriting them. Because will alone is not enough. Truth is required, the right timing is necessary, maturity is essential, and maturity was lacking. Today the other person knows who they are, they know what they deserve. They understand that they didn't come this far to repeat the same cycles, nor to feed emotions hungry for validation. Those who have learned to stand on their own do not yield to emotional blackmail. They do not bend in the face of needs disguised as love. They do not backtrack due to a "I missed you." Missing someone is easy. The hard part is maintaining presence. The challenging part is being there when things get tough. The difficult part is not running away when the other person crumbles. And that was not done, and that will not be forgotten. Thus, it's no longer useful to insist. It doesn't help to say you've changed, that you understand that now you're different. Because those who have been hurt too much learn not to trust words. They learn to observe actions. And more than that, they learn to recognize the time to accept neither actions nor words. It's too late, not according to the clock, but in the timing of the soul, because the soul is weary, because the gaze is now different, and the path no longer includes detours. The message has arrived, it has been read, it has been understood, but it will not be answered, not out of disregard, but because silence is also a response, and sometimes it's the most honest one. That's it. There comes a moment when you no longer respond, not out of disdain, but out of clarity, because understanding your own worth demands silence in front of those who only show up when it's convenient. Absence teaches, and those who learn never forget. Let each person carry the weight of the choices they made. Those who knew how to love move forward light-hearted. Those who wasted their chances deal with the emptiness. And if there are still any doubts, time does not return. And what was lost through carelessness cannot be regained in a hurry. Now it's your turn. Have you ever been through something like this? Have you received a message from someone who only appeared when your peace seemed to disrupt them? Comment down below. Your story might resonate with many. If this content made sense to you, please give it a like. It helps this video reach those who need to hear this. Share it with someone who needs to understand the power of silence. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this. Here, the truth is spoken plainly. See you next time.